an 18-year-old by the name of DeShawn Currie was returning home after he had spent some time out. And as he was entering his home from the side, apparently one of the neighbors called 911 because they thought that he was a burglar, right? So authorities showed up to the scene, and he explained to them calmly, I am a foster kid here, I live here. And according to what DeShawn says, cops didn't believe him because they looked at pictures throughout the house and realized that there was a white family living there. So they just didn't believe him, and then they decided to pepper spray him, okay? So this is the consequence of being racially profiled, okay? You're just returning home, you're doing nothing wrong, and a neighbor's gonna call 911 on you, and then on top of that, cops aren't gonna believe that you're the foster child in this home. Now, he did speak to ABC 11, and he told them that the cops ordered him to put his hands on the door. He says, I was like, for what? This is my house. I was like, why are y'all here? The cops said they pepper sprayed the teen after he became, quote, threatening and belligerent. Okay, and DeShawn Currie also says, I'm feeling comfortable. I had moved into my room and I'm feeling like I'm loved. And then when they come in and they just profile me and say that I'm not who I am, and I do not stay here because there was white kids on the wall, that really made me mad.
Look, I think this could have been averted if, of course, as usual, people had to use some common sense. So on the one hand, I want to give the cops a little bit of a break, and I'm telling you why, right? So it's not perfectly usual, it doesn't happen all the time, that you have an 18-year-old, and he's a large guy, you saw him, right? As a foster kid in a totally white home. It's not that it doesn't happen a lot, it does throughout the country, right? But it's not the most normal circumstance. So they see the pictures on the wall, and it's white people, and they see a pretty large guy who looks like an adult,
yep,
right? And they pause. Mm-hmm. But when the kid says, I live here, boy, that'd be a robber with a lot of balls to pretend he lives there. It's not, I would imagine that is also really, really unusual. So before you pepper spray the kid, go, what I would have done is, okay, let's all be cool, mm-hmm, let's be calm, okay? Show me show me something about the house that leads me to believe that you actually do live here.
Thank you, yes,
right?
That's what a well-trained, mature officer would do, but instead, the situation escalated, and I would understand if he was upset, right? I can totally understand if he gets belligerent. Look, here's the thing. Whenever we talk about things like white privilege, people get really angry because they think that it's an accusation, right? It's not an accusation, okay? This is not something that the majority of white people in the country are pushing for. White privilege simply means that if you are not a minority, you get the benefit of the doubt. And in this case, this kid did not get the benefit of the doubt just because of his skin color. He's been living in that home since July, okay? That's fairly recent, but I still think that that's enough time for the neighbors to notice that there's a black foster kid living there.
See, I think that's actually the most interesting part of the story. Because, mm-hmm, so the cops come in and we know they neutralize the threat, which I think is wrong. Like, no, you should understand what's happening. You should assess the situation first and foremost. But unfortunately, as we've seen in so many cases, they come in shooting, doing tasers, pepper spray, etc. Mm-hmm. Their assumption is, I'm going to take this person down, whoever they might be, right? And so I think that's part of the problem here. But the larger problem is the neighbor sees the black person there who's been living in the house for months and months, yeah, right? And I'm not even blaming the neighbor. It, just as Anna said, I want you to think about the assumptions that go into those decisions. If they had seen a white 18-year-old kid, there's no way in the world they would have picked up the phone and called 911, okay? They see a black kid, not breaking into the house, it's his house. He's
entering through the side of the home.
He's entering, he's got a key, right? But they see a black kid in the neighborhood, they call the cops immediately. You see, that's a burden that African Americans have that white people don't have.
Yes.
It's not, if you're a white person, it's not your fault that you don't have that burden.
Exactly. Again, it's not an accusation. I think a lot of people get really angry when you talk about things like white privilege, right? Because it makes it seem as though you've achieved something without actually putting in the hard work. But that's not what white privilege is. It just means that you don't have to deal with certain harassment. You don't have to be worried about going to New York City and getting stopped and frisked, okay? You don't have to worry about people not giving you the benefit of the doubt, because in most cases, you will get the benefit of the doubt. Okay, if you're entering your own home, your neighbors aren't going to call 911 on you.
Right, and if this was the only case that this happened, you might say, oh, come on, guys. But we've done this story, unfortunately, time after time. There was a kid in Houston who's the son of the pitcher. They live in a nice neighborhood because he's a Major League Baseball player. His dad is. He pulls up in his own driveway. cops come and shoot him, right? They're not going to shoot a white pitcher's kid in the middle of the driveway without asking him questions. They're not, and you know it, right? So it sucks that African Americans have to deal with this. We hope that we can get to a point where people don't make it that blanket assumption. I hope those things are easy to understand and that we could all learn from these things so that we can get to a point where we don't make those assumptions.
Exactly.